We'll throw this case-saving ring in here to save the aluminum. It goes between the center support and the case. And I put this 4-tab washer on here now. I'm putting a little petroleum jelly just to stick it on there. And then we'll go ahead and put this whole unit in the transmission. This hole in the center support obviously is going to be lined up with the hole in the case. The heavy unit. If I drop this, it'll be on video. I'm going to go ahead and just start this bolt that helps locate the center support, and then I'll put the snap ring on. And I put the ring on that holds the center support in the case. One side is beveled side out. Alright, we got that bolt back out, got a little Loctite on it. We're going to put it back in there, get it started. And before I do my final torque here, I'm just going to lever this towards this, this rear servo bore to try to locate the center support. Now that we got it this far, we're going to go ahead and check rear end play. Make sure it's in spec. If we need an adjustment, we'd do it at this point with that selective thickness thrust washer. Here's my intermediate clutch stack. You can see there's three frictions and 3 steels in it. The last steel was a wavy one. We're going to get rid of that and put a flat one in there. And before I soak the new frictions in ATF, we'll check for clearance on that stack. We're loading it here. We're going steel, friction, steel, friction, steel, friction. We'll put our retaining ring on and check for clearance. I have a feeler gauge between the top friction and the backing plate. We're looking for 40 thousandths to 100 thousandths of an inch here. I got about 65 thousandths clearance. It's in spec. Now I'll take this all back apart and soak these frictions for about 15 minutes and then reassemble. You can check the operation of your intermediate clutch through that locating bolt. Here's our direct clutch. First thing to do is check the rotation here. It's rotating clockwise only. It will not go back the other direction. Then I'll remove the snap ring and take a look at the roller or sprag that's in there. See here we got a roller type clutch. Take all these frictions and steels out of it now. We got a spacer in here, we'll get that out. You can see that this has some clutch springs in it. To get them out, I actually made a tool last time I did this. And I'm going to take this out to my press and compress that plate, get that retainer out of there so we can take a look inside here. Here's a look at it with spring retainer removed. Get all these springs out of here. And we'll get this piston out of here. Inside the drum is a lip seal. That comes out. And on this piston there's two lip seals, one on the outside, one on the inside. We'll get these two pieces here cleaned up and get the new lip seals on. Here everything's cleaned up, inspected, lip seals installed, lubed with training fluid, and we'll see how much she fights me going back together. Well, it fought me some, but you can see it's fully seated here. I have my spacer on top of the piston now, and we're going to check clutch stack clearance. You can see that the original stack had a wavy plate, and again we're going to omit that. This kit actually came with two different thickness plates you can use, so we'll start stacking this. Putting the old snap ring on. Made some adjustments. I have about 40 thousandths clearance. I'm going to run it. I'll take it all back apart now and soak those frictions for about 15 minutes in some ATF. Before I go any farther, I'm going to put my direct clutch drum on a center support and do an air check. If you don't have an extra center support like I do, you'd want to do this before you install that in the trans. Putting the roller clutch back on. Now I'm going to install the auto race by pushing down and rotating clockwise. Retainer and snap ring. This front band's been soaking in ATF for about 15 minutes. Put her in. I'm going to line up these intermediate frictions with a screwdriver. I'm going to coat these rings on the center support with ATF. I'm going to try to drop this direct clutch assembly in now. I had to monkey around with it some to get it in there, but I know it's in there and seated because its splines are even with the front edge of the sun gear shaft. We have our forward clutch drum assembly here. See, there's a washer on the forward clutch hub inside there, but we'll take the direct clutch hub off first by removing the snap ring. Now we'll take the forward clutch hub out. Here's another washer. You can see they go on either side of it. Here's the clutch stack. Now I'll compress the spring retainer and get the snap ring out. Spring retainer comes off. I'll take all these springs out. And then the piston comes out. The piston has a couple lip seals on it, and the drum has one in it. We'll replace all those lip seals. With the new lip seals lubed up here, we'll try to get this back together. Those lip seals fought me all the way, but we got them back in there. Now we'll clean up our springs and get our spring retainer and snap ring back in there. This stack had a waved plate in it also. We'll get rid of that. And I'll put the remaining seals in here and see what my clearance is. Hopefully it's close. This clutch stack is clearanced at about 30 thousandths. And I I actually had to assemble this over the feeler gauge to get it in there. Now I'll take it all back apart and assemble it with the forward clutch hub. I'll also soak these frictions in trans fluid for about 15 minutes. Here I got it all together, and I have an extra main shaft I've inserted into it, just making sure it rotates freely in both directions. We have our forward clutch assembly and input shaft set off to the side there, and now we're going to focus on the front pump. Right here is your selective thrust washer. Has some oil seal rings on it. And then here is the pressure regulator valve and boost valve, spring, the whole assembly. I'm just going to press on the end here with my thumb, and I'm going to use the snap ring pliers and try to get this all out. Lift this gasket out of here. Zip these 5 bolts out that hold the pump halves together. Once it's separated, a pin falls out of it right here towards the inside, and you can take this plug out. Here are the drive gears. This one has a dot on it. I'll remove these for cleaning purposes. Here I'm removing the front seal with a seal puller. There's a bushing here that's going to be spec'd out to the converter. And there are 2 stator shaft bushings that are going to be spec'd out to the input shaft. Now we're inspecting the pump pieces here, looking for any nicks or scoring on the where the gears ride on the crescent. This actually looks pretty good. It's flat. An interesting gear check in the book is it's just to pull one gear, and if the other gear comes with it, it's alright. If it comes free, then you need gear replacement. There's also a seal on the side of this pump that needs to come out. Here's a pump half cleaned up. We've checked for flatness, looks good. Using a feeler gauge, we're checking for end clearance. Shouldn't have much. New seal installed, new bushing installed, cleaned up. Getting ready to reassemble it now. I have a light coating of petroleum jelly in my pump gears. And put my plug back in with its pin and just get the bolts started. I'm using my spare case to align the pump halves, then I'll torque these bolts to spec. Now we'll break into this Transpac kit and get the replacement spring out. You can see the free length difference in those springs. Got my assembly all cleaned up, lube it up with some trans fluid or some petroleum jelly, and then I'm going to stick it back into the pump. There's a look at it assembled. That wasn't easy. I ended up chucking up my stator shaft with cardboard wrapped around it, my vise, and took the boost valve and put some petroleum jelly on it. I was able to compress it and get it together like that. Here are my oil sealed rings. These are going to go on the front pump. If there was a gap, you'd be measuring it in the bore of your front drum, but these ones interlock. I will check my seal ring to pump side clearance, however. Here I have a 15 thousandths thicker selective thrust washer to take up some of that excessive input shaft end play we had. And now I'll install the pump to case O-ring. Here's the pump on a converter, and we're going to see that we have a nice even resistance and that there's no binding or grinding going on. Try to drop my forward clutch assembly in. I got this rear thrust washer stuck on there with petroleum jelly. Should be about 1.25 inches down from this face once it's fully seated. There it is, fully seated. Rotating it counterclockwise and slightly lifting it and wiggling it worked for me. The manual linkage needs to go back in before the front pump goes on, because the front pump holds this nail in place. I got her looking something like this. You can see my pin in place. I got the input shaft journals and the forward clutch drum lubed up with ATF, and I have my gasket stuck on there with some petroleum jelly, the O-ring lubed up with petroleum jelly. I'm going to try to get her bolted in here. Got it torqued to spec. If you're wondering about the nail in this linkage, you can see with the front pump installed, it can only go so far back before it hits the pump. It's not going to come out of there. At this point, I'll check forward end play with a dial indicator. Make sure I'm in spec. You can already see it's a lot tighter than what it was. At this juncture, you can see I can rotate my input shaft by hand, so I know nothing's binding in there. Here's the extension housing. We'll remove the seal and bushing, put a new bushing in it. Here's the extension housing cleaned up with the new bushing in place. And we'll check the clearance between the bushing and the drive shaft yoke. The seal's in place now, and we'll go ahead and torque it onto the case to torque spec with the new gasket. And I put a little bit of anti-seize in my bolts here, just because it's an aluminum case. Here it is landed. We're taking a look at the governor now. I'm going to check to make sure the gear is tight, the valve in it operates the way it should, and I'm going to mic out the 3 lands on it. Here's the governor with the weights hanging free. You can see the intake port has clearance. We're going to measure that with a feeler gauge, looking for a certain spec, minimum there. And as we depress the weights, you'll see the valve move inside it. And kind of hard to see in camera, but there is clearance here. We'll check the exhaust port clearance. The governor bore in this case was checked before putting that in. And now I'll just go ahead and install the cover and get those bolts torqued to spec. Here's a look at the vacuum modulator and modulator valve. I'm not going to put this monstrosity back in. Instead I have an adjustable one here. Stick a fine screwdriver in there and you can turn it. I had to steal a different modulator valve out of my donor trans. Got her lubed up. We'll stick it in, make sure it floats freely. I have some petroleum jelly in my O-ring. We'll see if we can land this thing. I stole a different vacuum modulator retainer out of my donor trans as well. This one probably would have worked, but I like the looks of this one better. There it is, torqued to spec. Here's the rear servo assembly. There's the accumulator piston in it. You can see there's a couple seals on it. And there's a seal on the servo piston. I'll clean all this up, and the kit came with new rubber seals. Get those installed. The bores in the tranny look fine, and probably tough to see this, but you can see that both my bands are landed correctly. Here's the bore in my servo piston. You can see that looks fine. Got everything lubed up with ATF here. See if we can get this together. There it is, torqued to spec. Here's the front servo assembly. Comes apart as such. Spring towards the case. Does have a seal on it right now. There's a Teflon type one in there. And the kit came with a steel one. I don't want to put that in there. I did happen to have an aluminum seal ring though, so I'm going to measure end clearance on that, and then we'll also measure side clearance on that piston. We're onto the valve body here. I'm basically going to disassemble this whole valve body, take all the valves out of it, check them for any sort of scoring, make sure they all work freely. Then we'll inspect the valve body, make sure it's not cracked anywhere. And basically they're all held in with roll pins. You can just lever this out the top of it. And we'll also remove the 2-3 accumulator piston, and we're going to get rid of the spring for a better 2-3 shift. I'll give you an example here. basically get this pin started. The spring back there. And we'll start removing all the valves and components like that. Here's the valve body with all but one of the spool valves removed. That one was being pretty stubborn. I can see that it's working fine by gently levering on it against the valve body itself. So I'm probably better served leaving that one in there. I made a C-clamp tool quite some time ago to take off these 2-3 accumulator pistons. We'll see if we can get her to work today. There's the retaining clip exposed. We'll pull it out with the pliers. Piston, clip, and spring that we're not going to use. This piston does have a Teflon seal ring on it. Kit came with a new steel one. So I'll check end gap in the bore here and side clearance on the piston. End clearance check with ring in the bore. Side clearance check, ring in the piston groove. Valve body's inspected, looks good, nice and flat. And at this point I'm going to go ahead with the Transpac modification. They gave me a little expansion plug and I need to tap it into this hole. There it is set. I'll go ahead and get this valve body cleaned up and start reassembling it. Before I do that though, I was just going to show you guys my cleaning solutions. You can see how contaminated they are. I'll be dumping this into there and have some fresh stuff in this bucket just for the valve body. Here's the valve body mostly back together. Figured I'd show you guys the 2-3 accumulator piston going in back in with no spring. Here's a new 1-2 shift valve that's supplied with the Transpac kit. Luckily it's the same diameter as the one that was in there, so I'll be able to use the one in the kit. Otherwise you'd have to grind the original. And we'll get all this stuff cleaned up and assembled. Here's a look at the 1-2 shift valve assembly exploded. Our new Transpac 1-2 shift valve going in. Trying to be real careful here not to raise any kind of burrs. As part of the Transpac kit, I'm only installing 3 check balls. There, and there. We're leaving the other 3 out. The Transpac kit came with a new separator plate, and we're setting this trans up for street use. We're going to drill out this hole right here with the drill bit supplied in the kit. That raised some burrs on the back side. I'm going to clean that off, and I'll clean the whole separator plate off. Here's the Transpac to case separator plate gasket, denoted by a C. I'm going to place that on there and the separator plate. This is a lot easier to do with the transmission upside down. I actually have a video on installing a Transpac kit with the transmission in the car on my channel. Here's my detent solenoid. The disc is still in place. I'm going to go ahead and install this with the new metal gasket, a couple 1/4 bolts. Here's the valve body separator plate gasket. You can see the VB on it. Put that on there. Going to put in the manual shift valve. This thing will drop right out of there, so you got to be real careful with it once that's in. And on the governor tube closest to the center of the transmission, I have a screen with a little bit of petroleum jelly on it. That came with the rebuild kit. Try to get this all to mesh together here without dropping anything. I got a couple bolts in here just started to keep everything in alignment, and lift it up a little bit, get this manual valve into the linkage. I'll put the rest of the bolts in. Get this spring with the roller on it back in place. The detent solenoid bolts are torqued to spec, as well as all the valve body bolts. Here's the oil filter pickup tube. You can see it's labeled. It's double O-ringed, and I'll install it into the case. The Transpac actually provides 2 O-rings for this. The only other thing to do inside here is install the filter with this shouldered bolt. Floats on the shoulder, and I don't have the filter at this time. Here's a drain plug. Probably gonna cut these threads off and weld it somewhere on the pan where I can fit a temperature gauge. But I'm gonna wait till the transmission's in the car to locate that. 2 types of transmission dipstick seals. There's an O-ring and there's another type like this. I'm going to replace my O-ring when the transmission is installed. Here's a finalized look at my spec sheet. And there you have it, 1 AMC short shaft turbo 400 transmission. Just hope like heck the thing works when I put it in. I shot and edited somewhere in the neighborhood of 300 clips making this video, so if you somehow managed to make it to the end, how about a thumbs up? Thanks for watching.